Welcome to From Click to Client, where we transform a confusing message into a clear, compelling story that sells. I'm your host, Kris Jones, StoryBrand marketing expert. I'm here to help you attract more dream clients with the power of story. Welcome to the podcast, Elyse. I am so thrilled to have you here today. It's been a while since we've connected, and I cannot wait to share you and your brilliance with my listeners. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Kris. This is so beautiful. Even just getting caught up in the pre-chat and reflecting on like how much has changed and shifted since we initially worked together. And I know so many beautiful things in your life, and I'm excited to be in your energy and be in this conversation. So I know it's going to be really good.
So let's start out. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Elyse. I am the founder and CEO of She Sells and Superhuman Selling. I am a wife and a partner. My husband is currently in his second year of medical school, so we're kind of on that crazy journey right now. 3 kids, one of which is on the way. So our oldest is 4.5, and then we got a little guy who's almost 2 and due with another baby in a couple of months. And yeah, I live a full life, and I'm really grateful for it, because I think for a long time I didn't, and I lived life that was like what I thought I was supposed to do, and kind of checking the boxes, which we can talk about as we go. But I think the past maybe 5 years especially have really been a journey of discovering like who I am, what I came here on this planet to do, and just trusting that and taking big, bold action in pursuit of that. And it's been really wonderful and magical what's manifested. So
amazing.
Yeah,
Yes, I've watched you take many big, bold moves just in the last 5 years. So it's such an inspiration. This really is a full circle moment for me, because I'll kind of fill everybody in. So that was 5-ish years ago that we initially worked together, and you were my coach. And you were really the first coach that I had ever had. So it was kind of a new experience for me. And I remember like really clicking with you because we have this shared love of Joe Dispenza. And I know you've like gotten deeper into his work over the past few years. But there was one thing that came up for me in the last couple of days in anticipating this conversation. And it was one of the first conversations that you and I had. And you were asking some wonderful questions that really nobody had asked me before. And it was a lot about finances and a lot about like what it looked like to live the life that I wanted to live. And at that point in time, I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I was renting. And you were like, what do you want? Like, what would really feel good for you? And I'm like, well, I know what it would be. It would be a 3-bedroom condo with floor-to-ceiling windows, views of the river, views of the forest, but it felt impossible. Honestly, it felt so out of reach. And whenever I thought big like that before in my life, there was always like someone near me who would basically shoot it down, or just be like, no, that's extravagant, or that's too much. And I really hadn't ever experienced anything different than that. And so I thought big with you, and I'll never forget your reaction to my vision about my home. And you're like, okay, what does that cost per month to do that? And I told you, and you're like, okay. So then we moved on to the next thing. It was like truly like there was no reaction from you at all, which was the biggest gift that I could have gotten. And it was the first moment that I really thought, wow, like I can do this is possible. I can do this. And we really just mapped it out. It was very practical. Okay, this is your monthly payment. What does it cost for my 2-year-old to go to daycare? And like we mapped out some bigger expenses monthly. And then we figured out how much I needed to make in order to make that happen. So fast forward a few years later, I'm in that 3-bedroom condo, floor to ceiling windows, view of the forest, view of the river. And And you were such a big part of that. And this, like for me, the way I live, I'm very visual. So my home really matters to me. And I have a
Yeah.
feeling you're the same way. So I'm just
Yes.
like, I'm
Yeah.
forever indebted to you for
Oh,
just that pivotal conversation that we had. And it was one
wow.
of many, one of many.
Oh, wow. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. I was thinking about that condo this morning when I was thinking about this conversation, and I remember the video you sent me, and there was a place where I think it was like right after you and Jude had moved in, and I don't know if you all had been doing like a slumber party on the floor. There was something, but like you showed me the view outside near where you all had been sleeping, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just so beautiful to see the vision come to fruition. And I think, I so appreciate and receive what you said. And I'm so honored just by the opportunity to kind of be along your side during that season in life. And as you were talking to, I was just reflecting on, I think for all of us, it is so important to have someone or someones who can help us hold the vision, like the bigness of the vision, and help us realize it's actually quite normal and natural, and it's not as big as we necessarily make it, or sometimes we make it big or scary, or we make ourselves wrong for wanting more. I was having this exact conversation this morning in one of our group coaching calls, and absolutely, like in my own life, I've had so many of those experiences where you have a desire for more. I want to live in this type of home. I want to travel this way. I want to give this way. And then people around you, whether it's, well-intending parents or friends or whoever, who are just trying to keep you safe. And if you're just listening, I'm using air quotes, safe, protected, small, say, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure? And what I've really learned in my life is that you don't want to take advice from someone who doesn't have the results that you want in life, right?
Right.
Because they're just going to be able, as well intended as they may be, they're only going to be able to speak from their level of consciousness, and their level of consciousness is what's gotten them whatever results they have in their life. And so to really like consider the source of any feedback that you're getting and say, is this person who's dampening my vision, or who's telling me I can't do it, or who's telling me this is too bold or too this or too that, are they, not only do they have the results that I want, but are they living life the way that I want to live it? Are they free? Are they embodied? Are they, do they love themselves, right? Do they love life? And so to me, those are some of the things that I look for. And if not, then why am I going to take that perspective or that opinion, right? So,
Right.
um, I know it's kind of a tangent off of that, but I just want to say thank you for sharing that, and to see you move into the home and into a space that really felt aligned with you and how expansive you are and your energy is. It's important. Our environment matters a lot. Coming to you from a home we just closed on last week with no furniture in it, not my normal tech setup either. So thank you for bearing with me, but allowing yourself to expand into those spaces and places, whether physical, whether relational, that will support you in your growth, I think are so, so, so important. So
It's
important.
so important. And I'm curious, I've got a couple of questions related to this, and then we'll kind of move into your work now and what
Yeah.
you're passionate about. But before we do, I'm just curious, like, what was that process that you walked me through? I mean, it was so simple, but really, like, in your words, what even was that? Because in reflection, it was a long, long ago. I mean, was it that simple? Like, what do you want and what does it cost? Or was there
I,
more to it?
it's so funny. So I remember that call specifically. And I don't think, Kris, it was a set process per se, but um, what I'll kind of tell you like how I think about it now, and then maybe some of the process will unfold as we
Okay.
talk here.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in supporting and holding the dreams of others, whatever those are. I truly believe that if something is a soul aligned desire, meaning it lights you up, it feels expansive, whether it's launching a business, whether it's moving into a home, whether it's buying a pair of Louboutins, whether it's giving a big check to charity, and there's no like good or bad, there's no judgment on it. We are meant to do it. We are meant to have it. And so for me personally, as a coach, one of my greatest joys is being able to hold that space for others to normalize their desires and to have almost like an of course energy with it. So, I'm thinking back to that call, And I know oftentimes when I'm working with clients on manifesting something bigger in their lives, there can be an energy of like, almost like being apologetic about it. Like, ooh, I want this, but I don't know, this is too big. It's too much. It's impractical. It's this, it's that. So I don't know, there may have been some of that we worked through or not, but, um, I think the only limitations are in our mind, right? And so first, it's usually about, all right, what limiting beliefs need to be released? What limiting beliefs are you holding about you that say you can't be, do, or have anything that's a soul aligned desire? And then from there, really, now what's interesting, and I'll come back to what I was going to say, but we don't need to know the how for our desires. So it's funny that you and I broke down the money, because I think I could tell you were so close to it. It was like you just had to see the numbers and you would realize it wasn't that big of a deal. Sometimes we have dreams or visions where we have no idea the how, and we're not at the point yet to be able to break that down. That's fine too, right? We don't need to know the how. We just need to know we want something.
Right.
But I think with you, it was like helping you realize that it wasn't as big as you were maybe thinking it was. And
Right.
that's actually part of how we can really expand in our lives, whether it's a financial goal, a business goal, a life goal, like making the big feel small. And so we can chunk it down and kind of normalize it and be like, oh yeah, why was I making this thing bigger than me? Why was I making it
Right.
feel so unattainable when actually it is?
100%, 100%. So I
Yeah.
remember back then you were living in a different city and you were about to move and you were looking on Airbnb for rentals to make this transition
Yeah.
or whatever, Redfin or whatever online app you were using. And I remember you sharing with me your own awareness around, like, I have a cap in my mind about what I feel comfortable paying per month, and this process has brought that up. And then whoa, that's an awareness of a limit that is kind
Yeah.
of self-imposed, right? It's just like a kind of
100%.
a random number that we have, like, oh,
Yeah.
this is more than that, so I'm not going into that territory. And so tell me
Yeah.
about, like, now that you've moved into this beautiful home that you're in. I can see all the natural light and the trees. And tell me
Mhm.
how you manifested this home in your life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think part of what you're speaking to there, and I'll kind of weave this in as we talk, is something I'm so passionate about, which is consistently expanding our set points, consistently expanding our thresholds for what we just how we expect to live. And it's not about a money grab. There's a big time in my life where I pursued money or material things from a place of lack and like brokenness within myself. And I thought, if I can just make X amount of money, if I can just live in such and such type of home, then I'll be successful. Then I'll be worthy. Then I'll be secure. Then I'll be this and that. And that's not at all what we're talking about here. So there's a concept that we teach in the community called selling from wholeness versus selling from lack. And so it actually incorporates a lot of the beautiful work that like Dr. Joe Dispenza does or other leaders in the science and spirituality movement or New Thought. And we weave that into the sales world. But what I have found is as I've been on a journey of reconnecting with the fullness of who I am and coming to a place of wholeness within me, um, I do desire better things in many parts of my life, and I do appreciate higher level things in better parts of my life as well. And so last year we moved I shouldn't say unexpectedly, because we had been manifesting it. So my husband and I knew he wanted to get into medical school. We were in North Carolina at the time. He wanted to go to UNE, which is up in Maine. That's where he's from originally. I'm a Southern girl. I was like, well, I don't know. I really love you. Okay, if you want to do it, we'll do it. But then he got waitlisted, and we didn't honestly think it was going to happen. And I know I probably broke 20 of my own rules in that process of like holding the vision and holding the energy, but we didn't think it was going to happen. We had a new baby. Um, we had sold our home and everything years ago, and we'd been renting for a while and like just kind of moving around on the road. The place that we'd been living in, the rent was up, and we had to decide to like either do we just like move to Maine in faith before he's expected, or before he's accepted, or do we move to another place in North Carolina? I was not in faith in that moment. And so we moved to a new condo in North Carolina. And 3 weeks later, he got the call that he'd been taken off the wait list, and he had 48 hours to get up to Maine. And
Whoa.
so he left in like a whirlwind. I was left behind with two kids two little kids, one a baby and one who was 3 at that time. And kind of like, oh, wow, we have life has just changed dramatically. So long story short, we actually bought another home up here, sight unseen, because we've been moving and on the road a lot for the past few years, which is fine when you don't have kids. But when you have kids, at least for me, at a certain point, you're like, I need a landing pad. I need a place to stay.
Yes.
So we've lived, yeah, so we've lived in that home as a family together for about a year and a half now, which is beautiful. But then this past summer, we found out we were pregnant again. And I just, I've learned to really trust my knowing. And my knowing was we are moving into the home we were in was kind of like a landing pad. We knew we wanted it to be a rental long term. We are moving into a home that feels much more aligned. I had a feeling it would be in January. I didn't know why. I was just like, it's going to be in January. Um, and one of the things that I've learned in our lives is like when you make a decision, right? The energy of decision is to cut off all other options. Like it is done. It's happening. I didn't know where the money was going to come from for it. Hadn't really been planning it intentionally, but I was like, no, it's happening. So one of the things you can do when you're looking to call in something where you don't know the how is just take, what's the next step I can take? So I reached out to our realtor who had sold us the home the year before. It was like, you're going to think I'm nuts, but we're ready for another home. Started touring, used my intuition. There was nothing that was like perfectly clicking. But then we found this place that we closed on last week, right before Thanksgiving of this year. And I remember online stalking it and I was like, oh, it was, you know how you have the knowing and you're like, yes, this is it. And sure enough, the sales came in my business like right before that time frame to get us everything we needed to be able to purchase the home. And so in that expansion, like it has been stretchy, it has been uncomfortable. It's definitely more than I've ever laid out in the past for a piece of property, or probably for anything. But what's been really beautiful about it is we teach a lot about like abundance and the energy of money in our programs and in our community. When you learn how money works on a spiritual level, on an energetic level, and you understand that, to me, prosperity and abundance is all of my needs met at every point in space and time. And so in the present moment, just really being in that energy of all of my needs are met and trust and faith that what is needed gets to flow in the perfect timing, right? For whatever that next step is going to be. It's been a pretty easy process. So I'll say one other thing and I'll turn it back over to you. I think part of what's powerful about when you do actually like move into the new home or you drive the new car that was on your vision board for a long time, or you wake up and you look at your business and you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like this was a dream, a vision for so long and now it's here, is it's more about who you've become in the process than about the actual manifestation of the thing itself. And I noticed even as we were starting to move stuff into this house last week, there was a part of me, like the small part of me, who was still like, oh, is this okay? Like, ooh, is this like worried about approval, worried about what parents would say or this or that? And so I texted one of my coaches because I was like, okay, I'm noticing this is coming up. And so we did some identity work around just like aligning with, no, this is natural and normal. And of course, and now it feels more natural and normal. And of course, but we do, when we're in those up level periods, I believe and I say like your results will never supersede your identity. So it is about tuning into who is the identity and the self-concept of the person who has whatever you're going for right now, the 7-figure business, the home, the beautiful family life, right? And then working on manifesting that. And the results will naturally follow as well. So please take that wherever you want. I feel like I went a lot of different places with that.
You touched on something really beautiful, which is we don't really need to figure out the how. We need to envision what we want and then let the universe or whatever higher power you believe in to do all the detail work, like to make it happen. Tell us about, I want to hear, your wisdom around male, female energy. I've heard you talk about a cup metaphor and
Yeah.
feminine energy. I want to hear all about that because it's very much related to not having to figure out the how.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love your questions. They're so fun. Yes. So I was a woman who lived in masculine energy predominantly most of my life and had no idea that that's what I was doing. And the result of that was that I was staying stuck financially. I felt like I was grinding and working really hard for everything that I had. I felt stressed out. I felt depleted. Everything just felt hard and heavy. And this is probably closer to 10 years ago when I started working with mentors who taught feminine energy. And at first I was like, what is this? This is, this is strange. I don't see how this is going to help me grow my business. But what I learned was so powerful, which is we all have both types of energy. So to the cup analogy, like you asked about, so you can kind of think about it like this cup that I'm holding up. If you're listening, I'm just holding up a cup right now. The cup itself is like masculine energy. This is structure. It's logical. It's linear. Masculine energy is about the end destination. It's me. This is not so much about the cup, but this is masculine energy. It is me focused. It's action oriented. Nothing wrong with that, right? We need that in our lives and in our businesses. However, if I had this cup, but I didn't have anything to drink in it, the feminine is the water that's within the cup. Feminine is life-giving, right? Feminine is vision. Feminine is replenishing. Feminine is about quantum leaping, which we can speak to more if you want. For so long in my life, and what I see for a lot of the members of our community too, is I was like a cup with no water inside of it, and I was trying to drink and nothing was coming out, and I was just working harder. And so we all have both energies, regardless of gender. And what I see happen often with members of our community is they come and usually they're more in their masculine, not always, but usually. And they're like, why do I feel like I'm hitting a cap on my results? Why do I feel like everything feels hard or heavy? Why do I feel like I've got to grind? And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes these are also women who may have a family, may have kids, or may just have other desires for a fuller, more expansive life. And there's like, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. So when they learn to incorporate the feminine, which is about fun and play and vision and beauty and sensory experiences and enjoyment, they actually quantum leap and they end up making way more money, working less. A lot of them won't even tell if they're in corporate, they won't tell their bosses or their managers what they're doing because they don't want their leadership to know how many fewer hours they're working. They're expected to be getting such great results. And then of course, if they're an entrepreneur, they answer to themselves. But so we all have both. And I think that it's finding that alignment and that blend. Usually for us as women, like when we can be more in our feminine and use the masculine to support, then we're really in our power spot. So that means whatever your process is to connect with spirit, connect with your higher self in the morning, connect to vision, get into the feeling state of what you want. And then from there will be, I call them divine downloads, but like actions to take, reach out to this person, do this thing. So we're still taking action and it can be stretchy and uncomfortable action, but it doesn't feel like grind or hustle action. So you will not quantum leap from pure masculine energy. You can't. It's too logical. Masculine energy is if I want to make, we did a little bit of masculine energy in your house planning, actually, as you're talking about it. It's like, if I want to make $1 million this year, I've got to sell this many clients. I've got to put out this many proposals, do this many things. And that is one way to achieve goals. That's how most people are taught to achieve goals. But the feminine is about go all the way to the end vision achieved, like see it, feel it, see yourself in the house, see yourself celebrating your first 7-figure year, and like feel the feelings. And then from there, be non-attached to the how or the when of it, but pay attention to the downloads that come. And I was able to personally quantum leap my income using that as a tool and 10x in 6 weeks after being stuck for 10 years. Wow. And it was feminine. It was primarily feminine energy. So it's so powerful when we learn how to align both and integrate both and then live in that blend. So yeah.
So you've mentioned the quantum leap experience. Is that what you call it? The quantum leap experience.
Yeah.
And my listeners are client-based business owners. And I'm curious, like what is it, number one, and how would that relate to my audience?
Absolutely. Well, to me, a quantum leap is doing something that many people would say is not possible or is in a shorter amount of time than many people would say is possible. So in my own life, I was stuck at the same income level for 10 years, grinding, hustling, working incredibly hard, unable to break past a certain threshold, in a lot of anxiety and fear and worry about money and bills and all of that. And my quantum leap was going from that to literally turning my annual income into my monthly income in 6 weeks. And most people, even when it happened, I say it happened to me, it didn't actually happen to me. I know that I manifested it. But when it happened, it felt so fast. I was almost in awe of like, wait, you're telling me that the whole 10 years I've been struggling and it's felt really hard. And then I learned a couple of core things, not learn, but like I embody a couple of core things around feminine energy and wealth energetics and ease and all of that. And it's going to jump like that. And so for a business owner, because we've got I love the group you serve. We've got a lot of that group in our community too. I would think about if there were no consequences or limitations and you could have it any way you wanted in your business. So think about like, what size is your business? How many clients are you serving? What's your revenue like? What's your office like if you have one? What's your team like? And maybe it's a goal that feels like a 10-year goal, right? And maybe your mind is saying, oh, there's no way that could happen before 5 or 10 years. What would it be like if that happened this year, right? What would it be like if that were your reality in 6 months, right? And start playing with that. That's a quantum leap. That's something where it's almost like we're skipping levels. And here's the thing, in life and in business, we don't get what we want, we get what we are, right? So the key to it is you have to look at, for that goal, who would you need to be being, right? For that to happen. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your actions? And then the goal is, in the work is you actually start embodying that person now. And then you've got to stay unattached to the timeline. So there are things where it's like, there's a natural process that needs to happen. But what I have found is that I think we prolong our results and we make things take longer than they need to often, not always, but often, because of limiting beliefs, because we're in resistance to something, because we don't feel worthy of something. And so if you go to the end result of what you'd love to be experiencing in your business and with your clients, and then really call that in and say, all right, well, if I was going to live that now in my mind, how would that feel? And who would I be? And how would I show up? And how would I operate? How would I dress? How would I speak? And you start practicing being that person. You can collapse the timeline of something that you think is going to take a long time. And it's happening left and right in our community. And I love those moments. I've learned to also really love the process in the in-between as well, because that's the part where you're becoming. But that's a quantum leap, and that's really, really fun.
Tell us a story about something wonderful that's happened for someone in your community.
Ooh, yeah. There's so many. I will share, there's a beautiful woman in our community, and she is in corporate sales, and she and I connected last April, and she had a daughter who was just a couple months old at that time and was doing a lot of work according to, I call it like the old way of doing business, where it's like the hustle, the grind, competition, scarcity, force. Like that's just what we've been taught to do. So she was in that mode within her business, and she knew she wanted something different, especially as her daughter, who was just a couple months old at the time, but especially as she grew. And she knew she wanted more time with her. She knew that what she was doing wasn't really sustainable. So she came in and embodied this material and really soaked it up and started tapping into more feminine energy, started tapping into the power of visualization and identity and self-concept work. And oh my gosh, I don't want to get the number wrong, but because she's had so many manifestations since she came in, but she 5x'd in 5 months what she was doing. She's become one of the top in the company. She's working way less hours. Again, she may or may not be telling her boss that, so I'm like not going to give any identifying information away. And what's so fun about this too, so there's a lot more to it, but I'll just keep it really high level for now. But she also wanted to move into her dream home last year. We've got so many members manifesting dream homes in our community. And she and I actually went into escrow on the same day for our new homes. And she just texted me yesterday pictures of them closing on the home. And it's like her and her husband and their daughter, who's a little over 1 now, just, with the sold sign and welcome home sign. And she's just beaming. And it's really beautiful. And she's continuing to ascend and think greater. And what I also know is powerful is she knows that she's going to model something different for her daughter and any other kids they have down the road than she saw growing up. And so I think the impact of this work, it's like it doesn't just end with us. It gets passed on to our kids and future grandkids and generations beyond that we don't even know of yet.
Truly,
So one of many
truly.
beautiful stories, but yeah,
That ripple effect is real. It
so
really
real,
is.
so
Um,
real.
let's talk a little bit about sales because
Mm,
when it comes to sales, you are truly masterful and you've helped so many people look and think about sales in a different way. I will tell you, my clients dread sales. I got an email from a client last week, and when I work with people, we really work on crafting their story and really
yeah,
uh, enabling them to have the words to communicate what they do in a more compelling
yeah.
way. And I got this email, and he said the subject was, "Welp, I still suck at sales." And so we delved into that a little bit, but I'm curious, like that is not uncommon, right? Like people
Yeah.
cringe, they don't want to feel salesy. When you're self-employed, you really are leaning into the work that you want to do and the reason that you're here on this planet. And my clients just they love the work they do. They love helping their clients. But the selling part, they all wish that they could just remove that from kind of
Yeah.
the pie of being self-employed. So tell us tell us what you know about selling. And I also want to hear about this concept that you have around servant leadership.
Okay, absolutely. It's so funny that you talk about that email you got because that's probably very common for people to feel that way. I mean, I love sales. I really do. And I'll share how I think about it. I didn't always, even though I was someone who had a career in sales, I hated it. I didn't like it. And it was because of a lot of the ways that I was thinking about it. So I used to make sales about me. I used to feel less than my clients or my prospects. I used to feel like I was begging. I used to feel like I had to like hard close people and push and all of that. And anyone with a conscience, like if they think that's what sales is, they're going to feel really uncomfortable and like they don't want to sell, right?
Right.
So I think what has really shifted for me over the years, I see sales as like a very spiritual thing now, which if you, everyone just bear with me on this, this train of thought. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. It can be you're selling, uh, you're selling legal services to a client, you're selling design, copy services, coaching services, whatever it is. But I see it as a very like sacred transaction where someone who is going to really benefit from what it is that you have to offer is being brought into your energy. And it's just an energy exchange. That's it. It's just an energy exchange. And for you as the service provider, it is important that you are compensated for what you're doing and that you're compensated graciously. And we can all tell when our prices are too low or no longer aligned because it's like, you sign a client, you're like, oh, I don't really feel like doing this. This feels heavy. I'm not lit up about it. So I think a big piece of healing relationship with sales is actually healing your relationship with money. And so that's part of why we do a lot of wealth and money energetics work with our clients in our community because it's all intertwined. It's all intertwined. So whatever your revenue goal is, whatever your financial goal is for your business, like there's a frequency to that, right? But you have to be available to receive it. Your business is a channel that you can receive that compensation for, that energy for, that money for in exchange for service provided. And so to me, it's actually a really beautiful exchange where um, I receive the flow of energy that comes in from clients when they're paying me. And simultaneously, I know that I get to bless their lives through the work that I'm doing. And everyone listening, you're doing that for your clients in whatever capacity you serve, right? And so I think when we can, I think a lot of times we get things twisted with sales if we are really attached to the outcome. That's a big one, right? Where it's like, I need this client, I need this money, or we make it mean something about us if they say no. And to me, that's actually where a lot of like my own spiritual practice has helped tremendously. I can't really separate one from the other and talk about it with honesty.
Mhm.
So just really anchoring into clients are not source, right? Source is source, God is source, universe is source, whatever your language is around that. And knowing that if you are doing the work, you've got a goal. Let's say your goal is 10K months or 50K months or 100K months or beyond, but you're focusing on embodying that. You're focusing on being that version of you. You're focusing on playing with who am I at that level, and you feel aligned to it, right? You're doing the work to feel aligned to it. And a client says no, or a client ghosts, or someone like, it's happening either way. It doesn't matter whether it happens through that person or through someone else. You can sit back in a sales conversation and really listen. And it should be a mutual evaluation of not only am I the right service provider for this client, but are they like, do I want to serve them, right? It should be mutual. So that lean back energy, I had a mentor call it once, that lean back energy, I think is so important. And when you lean back, people actually lean in as well. So I think that if anyone is listening to this and you don't really believe in what you're, as an entrepreneur, if you don't believe in what you're selling, usually it's more you don't believe in you. Yeah. So there's some beautiful work you get to do around really owning who you are, owning the power of what you provide. If you can look at things like, how could I make this the most beautiful service ever, the most powerful service ever? Like, what would I want to buy? What would get me lit up about this? And you can play with stuff like that. But then from there, create the belief that your ideal clients will do whatever it takes to be in your energy, to work with you, to play at your level, and hold that energy when you're in sales conversations and sales calls, non-attached. You will make way more sales. But it'll feel easier. So I think just really cultivating the belief of like, if I was someone who loved sales, what would that feel like? What would that be like? What would I need to believe about sales for it to feel easy, for it to feel good, for it to feel sacred, right? What would that need to look and feel like? And things will shift.
Yes.
Yeah.
I try and remind my clients that really we're selling the transformation. So it's kind of meta with what we're talking about here. Like, as a business owner, who do you want to become? Who do you want to be? And what does that look like? But we're actually guiding our clients to also become somebody different. And we're holding their hands into that process. And it's so valuable. We're solving really important problems. And it's fundamentally about helping them transform, which is a different way of coming to the table with your services. I also love this idea, and I share this a lot with my clients, that when somebody pays you money and an amount that you really feel lit up about and excited to serve them, they show up differently because they're invested on a completely different level, right? And so it changes the dynamic, and they're more likely to get that end result because they've actually invested their resources with you.
Yes, it's so true. It's so, so true. So, not charging your worth, not allowing people to pay you, it is actually a disservice to them. It's such a great point you brought up. And I think about even in my first real quantum leap experience of 10X in 6 weeks, I had just invested, it was 50,000 for 6 months, but it was an annualized, 100K for the year for coaching. And that to me at that time was astronomical. And I had to stretch so much to do it. But the beautiful thing was in the process, I was like, oh no, we're not playing. Like, here we go.
Right.
Let's go. So when your clients get to stretch to be in your energy, right? When they get to stretch to work with you, they will, to your point, absolutely take it more seriously. They will get so much transformation, even in just that exchange of money.
Right.
And then it sets the whole thing up for so much more success, truly.
Right, truly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a beautiful gift for both people.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me, like, as a business owner, what is something that you know now that you wish you had known 5 years ago?
I was thinking about that this morning. I love how in tune we are. So good. I was thinking, this was probably more 4 years ago. So we launched the brand and the business 4 years ago. And I was just doing a little bit of reflecting as I was like walking into the house today and getting stuff set up it was more like I'm proud of my younger self, but it was also like, I'm so glad that I kept going when things felt hard. Just kind of looking at, and it's certainly there's still plenty of challenges that pop up or ways I get to grow for where we are now. And I know that'll continue to be as long as I'm on this planet. But there were multiple periods early on in the life cycle of like of this business and my career here where I just remember being like, there's so much going out in faith. There's so much trusting myself. There was so much continuing to show up, even if it looked like things weren't working, even if it looked like things weren't going to come together. I wasn't going to hit the number, the goal, or be able to pay the bill sometimes even. And I was just looking back on that. I was like, I'm so glad I kept going. I'm so glad I kept showing up. I'm so glad I kept trusting myself and taking action in faith, just to know like it always works out. It always works out. And sometimes it works out in different ways than we're initially anticipating, but it always works out. And so I think I think it would really be just an anchoring into the message that I continue to teach, and that has really been the core foundation of She Sells from the start, which is trust yourself. Like really, we have to trust ourselves, just like you trusted yourself with the home and you were like, yes, we're doing it. I'm trusting my desire. Let's go. We have to learn to tune in and trust our own knowing. I believe, and I say that your desires are green lights. So you've got a desire this year to launch a new division within your company, follow that. You've got a desire to bring on a certain team member to help support you in what you're doing, follow that. You've got a desire to go to this cool event coming up and you're like, oh, making yourself wrong for the money or the travel or the time or whatever, follow it, follow it, follow it, follow it. Your desires are green lights. That is what I would say.
That's beautiful. And I would add, really protect those desires because they are sacred. So share them with people that are also going to really support that desire and not make you wrong for it or make it feel too big.
Yeah, so important. So important. Absolutely. Yeah, love it.
Okay, well, as we wrap up today, where can people find you and what's the, tell us a little bit about your program and where people can find you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, gosh, this has been beautiful. I've loved answering every single question you asked. So like I said, our communities and our programs are called She Sells and Superhuman Selling. We serve a lot of women in our community, which has been really beautiful. That was the inspiration and the backbone of what the company was built on. About 4 years ago, I just saw a need for sales and business training for women, particularly women entrepreneurs, female sales professionals. And one thing I will say is, and you probably picked up on it in this conversation, I also say sales is the Trojan horse. So we're going to pull you in with some really good, really cool sales training and help you grow your sales. And the way you actually grow your sales in Quantum Leap is a lot of what we talked about today. So we teach a method called the 4 quadrants of quantum sales growth, which is all about quantum leaping your sales, your income, and your life. We also have a beautiful men's mastermind within the community that we've launched because we had so many men who were, listening to the podcast or who were watching my social who were like, when are you going to launch He Sells? So that's actually part of Superhuman Selling, which is another division. And we're growing and building that up this year into more of like a membership and an app, which I'm excited for as well. Wow. But yeah, we've got beautiful programs designed to help everyone from hitting anywhere from their first 6 figures to multi 6 to 7 figures, all based on both tactical strategy and a lot of the inner work we've talked about. ElyseArcher.com/4 quadrants. You can get a beautiful free training that goes deeper into what we talked about today, or ElyseArcher.com/free call to get connected with a member of my team for a consult. And just let us know you came in from Kris, because I love you and adore you. And we want to really honor every member of your community as well. So yeah, that's what we do.
Amazing.
We love to help people transform. Yeah.
I will include all of your links in the show notes. So if you're on the go while you're listening to this, just go to the show notes and connect with Elyse. She is the real deal. She has completely transformed my life. And it's such an honor to have you here today. It's such a joy to get to see you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you. I appreciate this so much. This was so fun. Thank you, Kris.
Thank you. Is your website turning away potential clients? I can help you turn that around. Book a money-making messaging call with me today, and we'll transform your story into your most powerful sales tool. That's all for this episode of From Click to Client. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. I'm Kris Jones, and I'll see you next time.